Hey everyone, welcome to the Keep 'em Healthy podcast. This is your host, Jamie. We are locked in on season 4. This season is going to be full of curiosity, learning, and great conversation. If this show is helpful to you, please share these episodes and follow this podcast on your podcast apps. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get this conversation started. Hey listeners, today on my show, I have Sam Citro Alexander. She is the CEO and co-founder of FoodHealth. And what this is going to do for you today, what we're going to explain, is we're going to give some clarity to us grocery shoppers. And we're going to improve our health by rating products that are in the grocery store that maybe have better quality and better ingredients, and we don't even know about it. So, Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This will be so much fun.
I'm excited to hear all about this. So can you explain a little bit deeper exactly what FoodHealth does and how you can rate the products in the store?
Absolutely. So before I talk about what we do, I'll talk about why we do what we do, because that is so foundational. So I grew up in an Italian-American family in New Jersey. And food has always been central to how we communicate and show love to each other. However, almost everyone in my family has some diet-related health issue, whether it's food allergies, gut issues, diabetes. We really run the whole gamut. And we kept finding ourselves sitting at the table talking about, is this healthy? Is that healthy? Should I eat this? Should I eat that? And one afternoon, about 5 years ago, I got a call from my grandmother, and she had just come back from the doctor and said, Sam, I don't understand what's happening. I came back from the doctor and he said that I'm pre-diabetic. And she was so surprised because she thought that she was eating well. And she is like a vegetables with every meal, eat fruit for dessert lady. And so I went over to her house on a Sunday and we went through her refrigerator and her pantry. And what was fascinating to me and also disturbing to me is that all of these foods that she had stocked her house with said things on the front of the pack like heart healthy, high fiber, high protein. But when you flip them around, that's just one component of the story. And there was all kinds of junk in there that ultimately led to the development of this disease. And that's really why we exist. It's because figuring out what is healthy for you, for your family, is not as easy as it should be. And we can't always go by what's on the front of the pack because one claim does not tell the whole story of a food. And so we developed a nutrition scoring system called the FoodHealth Score. It's very easy. It's a 1 to 100 system. It has 4 colors, red, yellow, light green, and dark green. 100/dark green being these are awesome foods. 1/red being these are less awesome foods, and everything in between. And we do the work for you. So we distill everything that is on the nutrition facts panel and the ingredient list of the food down into that 1 to 100 number so that you can easily answer the question for you and your family. Is this food healthy? Should I be eating this or not?
This is a gift for a grocery shopper because I will tell you this, the marketing when it comes to packaging, and you see on the packaging gluten-free and same thing, heart healthy, and or even just they try to even like low fat, low sugar, but they don't tell you that what they put in there to make it low fat or low sugar or gluten-free is probably even worse than if you were to have the actual product of full fat, full gluten, whatever else is in there. I can see how your grandmother is thinking, hey, I have heart healthy, I have this, I have that. How the heck did I wind up pre-diabetes? And that is how the marketing system is working against us and using our excitable, like 1-word things, like, or 2 words, gluten-free, to have us buy the things thinking we're being healthy.
Or even something so simple. So when we were going, I will never forget this exchange. We were going back and forth and I saw that she had a bunch of dark chocolate caramel bars in her pantry. And I was like, this is really odd. You don't eat candy. Why is this in your pantry? And she said, well, the doctor told me that if I wanted to have something sweet, dark chocolate was a good choice. And broadly speaking, yes, that is good advice. But when you go to the grocery store and you look at the range of things that are dark chocolate, there are some good choices in there, and there are some not so great choices in there that are packed with, 40 grams of added sugar. And because she didn't know what she was looking for, she was following this advice, and she happened to grab, one of the bars that had 40 grams of added sugar instead of one of the bars that didn't. It's so hard. It's so hard to navigate.
It is. And that is a typical story. That is like, because dark chocolate could be 35% cacao to range to 100% cacao without any added sugar or milk or anything else in there, or you can add it all in. I mean, there's like, midnight Milky Ways that have dark chocolate. Is that healthy? Like, no. But like, that would be under the dark chocolate label. So I can totally, I have empathy for your grandmother and for the rest of us out there who think same thing. I was told this is healthy, therefore I'm going to eat it and I should have success. And then she didn't. And that is so frustrating. So I feel for her. It's awful.
I know. Me too. But there's a good end of this story, because she was able to reverse out of her prediabetes entirely through food, no medication. So we got her on track.
I love it. Well, that's food is medicine. And I think that's why this food health is so important, because to be able to differentiate between items that if you know your recipe, you know where you want to get, and then you go in the store and you're like, all right, like I'm trying my best to get my best bang for the buck. Because guess what? To create recipes, to go to the grocery store, to buy the items, and like they're expensive. All items at the grocery store are expensive, like whether they're healthy or not, everything's expensive now.
Totally.
Like we put a lot into, especially as mothers, a lot of my listeners are mothers, especially as mothers, we put a lot of energy, time, money into this grocery experience. And so to be fooled by marketing people and different types of wording on boxes and labels is a travesty. Tell me how this works. So like if you're buying cottage cheese, like let's just go cottage cheese, like how does this work with the scoring and how you can compare, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, totally. So up until right now, up until December of 2025, the only way that you can see the food health score of an item is if you shop at one of our grocery partners. So we work with Kroger and Harris Teeter and Ralph's and King Soopers and Hy-Vee and a bunch of others. And we actually show you the food health score right on their website next to the nutrition facts panel so that you can compare items. That is great for people who shop at those stores. However, I have so many friends who, and just people in the world who are calling and saying, I really want to use the food health score, but I shop at Walmart, or I shop at Target, I shop at Trader Joe's, places that are not our partners. And so in January, we are launching a Chrome extension for all of you online shoppers. It's totally free. You download it from the Chrome web store one time, and every time you go to whatever your favorite grocery site is, Food Health AI will be there right alongside you on the right side of your screen, showing you the food health score for every product you put in your cart. And if that item is below a certain score, it'll show you healthy swaps that meet your dietary preferences, your budget needs, and a better, more healthful choice for you. And so you can just take a look at those and add those to your cart instead. So we want to make it as easy as possible to find the healthiest items in the store.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for doing that and for, championing that, because I'm a little curious when you talk about the food score and you talk about the dark green versus light green, what is some criteria that you're looking at that's going to put something in the category of the dark green versus the light green?
Okay, so I'm going to deeply oversimplify this. Okay. So don't take this as like absolute 100% true, but for the purposes of this conversation and oversimplification, foods that are dark green are foods that are all good. Meaning these are fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, foods that from a nutrition facts panel perspective are nutrient dense in nutrients that we want to consume more of, whether that's fiber, protein, potassium, other micronutrients, and do not contain nutrients that we want to limit, like added sugar, excessive sodium, excessive saturated fat. So that's dark green.
Okay.
And then red are items that are all bad, no good. These are items that contain those nutrients to limit, have a bunch of additive ingredients that have known health risks, and don't have any of the beneficial stuff. And then yellow and light green are the foods in the middle. So yellow has more bad than good, but it has some good. And light green has more good than bad, but it has some bad. And that is really where we find that people need help, because we all kind of know, Milky Way is not so great. Spinach, great. But it's all the stuff in the middle. How do I think about a strawberry yogurt that has 5 grams of added sugar? Is that good for yogurt, bad for yogurt? Can I eat that? Can I not eat that? How do I think about protein waffles? How do I think about all of these foods in the shades of gray, or to us in the shades of yellow and light green?
Right. That's a really good point, because that's where the line, if you walk like a really thin line of being like, you're like, okay, great, protein packed. We know protein's good for us.
Mm-hmm.
But what else is in that waffle? And is
Yes.
that ratio going to overpower the good? So it's good to ask those questions and to have some advice, because again, if you're going to give protein to your kid or to yourself, you want to give them the best option of the protein. And of course you want it to also taste good. So you're like, okay, so here's my thing. Of course you want to be like, perfectionist in me is like, I want my grocery cart to have like a 100% score. Okay. However, let's be real. Like, it's not, maybe price wise or whatever the case is, I can't get 100. What is the ideal for an average American shopper? What would the ideal, not ideal, but the average number, or what are we striving for?
Fantastic question. So we actually studied 200 billion grocery purchases, because we wanted to know what's the baseline. And what we found is that across 200 billion grocery purchases, the average FoodHealth score for a household in the US is a 48 out of 1. That's not great.
So would that be yellow? Is 48 yellow?
It would be yellow. Yep, 48's yellow. That would be yellow. We want your overall aggregate score to be in the dark green. So we want you to be 80 or above. When we look at grocery carts of households that are following the optimal dietary pattern for chronic disease prevention, which is a version of the Mediterranean diet protocol, mostly whole foods, mostly lean proteins, whole grains, legumes, minimize added sugars, etc., that scores somewhere between an 85 and an 88. So we want to try to take ourselves from 48 to 88. And if we land somewhere in the middle, if we land in the 60s, in the light green, that's pretty good. We're doing better than the baseline.
Yeah. So what have been some implications or some results of people who have been using this, who have started out in the 48s and now are working their way up into the 60s and maybe 80s? Like, have people shared stories, or have people come saying like, I reversed my diabetes, or anything along those lines?
Yep, absolutely. So when we look at it at a population health level, we know that higher households with a higher average FoodHealth score have lower rates of chronic disease. So we see lower rates of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, lower A1C, lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol across the board, population health. And then there are individual stories, which are the ones that make me happiest. When someone sends us an email and says, I was able to get my family's cart from, a 39 to a 56, and we all have so much more energy. Or I was able to get my family's cart from a 45 to a 65, and I did it by swapping out lots of my kids' snacks. And now they ask me for the 100% fruit roll-ups instead of the overly sweet ones. Those are the success stories that mean the most.
Absolutely. I mean, that's real change happening in a person's everyday life. Now, can I ask you, cost-wise, is there a difference between, if you had a cart that was in the 48 versus a cart in the 80s, are you going to need to expect a price differentiation, meaning like it'll be more expensive to be in the cart of an 80 versus the 48?
That is a great question. So the answer is, it depends where you live, which is an answer that I do not love.
Yeah, that's strange.
I know. What we find is that if you look at all of the food that exists across the US, healthy food is not necessarily more expensive than less healthy food. It's just less available. And so if you live in a metro where healthy food is readily available, it is totally possible to go from a cart of a 48 to a 65 to an 88 and spend about the same amount. Maybe you're flexing up, 1 to 2% as you change from a 48 to an 88, but pretty close. But if you live in a metro where healthy food is not as available, because there is scarcity, often the prices will be higher. And so you might see as you go from a 48 to an 88, your overall basket cost increasing by 5% or 10%.
Okay. And I've seen that in real life because a lot of the quote unquote health items, let's just say even gluten-free, like that aisle and a Giant or something is going to be way more expensive because it's known as a specialty item. So they jack up the prices. Whereas if you go to a local whole food store, like I have a Kimberton's Whole Foods up here, and because those items are actually not specialty, they're part of the store. The whole
core.
stores would be known as specialty then. Their prices are $3 to $4 difference for like loaves of bread or like a thing of, you know, like snack foods or whatever that you would find in Giant. It is that makes sense to me that if it's known as a specialty item, they jack up the prices multiple dollars and you're going to see this influx. So what would your advice be to those people who are like, okay, well, this is where I have to draw the line. Here are my finances and this is where I live. What would your advice be?
Absolutely. So I'll give some practical advice and then I'll give some more meta advice. The practical advice is that what we find often is that private label products, so products that are created by your grocery store and sold by your grocery store, are often just as healthy as the, let's say, light green options available from major brands that are priced specialty. And so there's a lot that can be found in private label that is lower cost, just as healthy, a really good choice. It just doesn't have flashy packaging and name recognition. So often, if you download the Chrome extension, we can help you do this too. You can compare and find private label swaps. That is my super practical advice. My more meta advice, which is a really hard thing to do, and I recognize is a really hard thing to do, is to think about your food and your healthcare budget together instead of thinking about them separately, and to do a little bit of cost benefit analysis. Okay, if I invest a bit more in my health on the food side, could I lower my overall healthcare costs to balance my budget holistically? To do that requires that you have a bit of a longer term view. So you've got to have like a year or so to play around with that. And some people don't. But if you do, I would recommend thinking about those two budgets together instead of separately.
I agree with that. Would say investing in your food. My family specifically made this as a commitment. We invest in the food that we bring into the home so that we don't have to take time and energy and money to go to the autoimmune doctors or the inflammatory doctors to try to avoid those items. And that way we save more money because we're not paying the medical bills. So that is kind of long-term. If for someone who is like, okay, well, like you're saying, if it's a year's time and you might have both medical bills and influx of food, it is a hard decision to make and it is a hard commitment. So I have, once again, empathy in those regards, but I like your option of saying, look for the store brands and see that they're making similar items to the ones that have the name brands, and that could be a really nice swap.
Yep. And I would say too, over the last year, maybe year and a half, we've seen more of the major label brands, your big food brands, launching healthier options. And when we compare them side by side with some of the specialty items from a FoodHealth Score perspective, often those are pretty comparable too. And so what we find often when people start looking at the FoodHealth Scores of things is that there's more available that is healthier than you think. It just takes so much time to read every single label that without some help, you wouldn't find those items that are cost similar, but maybe 5 or 10 points healthier that can really help to nudge you in the right direction over time.
Absolutely. Do you have any insight on, you know how I once interviewed a woman who lived in Europe, she lived in England, and she said that if the quality of the food was quote unquote like American food, then that was the lowest quality being over there.
Sad.
Like they're like, I was so upset, but I understand because that's our life. But did you do any research or comparisons in regards to grocery carts in other countries that have these higher standards than American standards?
It's a great question. We haven't published anything on it yet, but when we were looking at what is the ideal cart for overall health and chronic disease prevention, we did look outside the US to get to that 80 to 88 number. We did.
And was it easier?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, listen, even think about like something simple like Skittles. Like they don't allow certain colors and things that are chemicals that are messing with us. And, and so I can see how quickly that could change those numbers and really make you go from that 48 to 60 to 80, which I know I don't want to like, make everyone sad. But it's something to think about in just ingredient wise. And just again, just a reminder in general to open our eyes to ingredients and labeling and not to be
Yep.
fooled and not to, succumb to the whims of people trying to make money off of us without thinking about our overall health.
We just want to be more mindful. Really, that's if
Absolutely.
I can leave everyone listening with one thing today, it's just to be more mindful about what we put into our bodies, what we put into our kids' bodies, and to find tools that make it easy for you to be mindful because no one has time to spend 3 hours in the grocery store reading every single label. Nobody has time for that. And so, how can you get some leverage for yourself to make it possible?
Right. Some leverage and have some agency in your choices so that, like I said, it's a huge commitment for people to go and bring home groceries to make sure that this food is of high quality and nutrient dense. So thank you so much for all this information, Sam, because I really think it's beneficial for everybody. And this conversation even just reignited my passion of being like, don't forget to read labels. But listen, where can we find you and where can we find Food Health? Tell my listeners how do we do this if we want to embark on this journey?
Absolutely. So if you are interested in our free Chrome extension as a buddy for you while you shop online, just go to foodhealth.co, not .com. Somebody bought that and they won't sell it to me. So go to foodhealth.co. I know, foodhealth.co. And depending on when you're listening to this, you can either sign up for the wait list and we have a really awesome healthy food giveaway associated with that, or you can just go ahead and download the Chrome. I also have a Substack for anyone who wants to go deeper on food data and food science and an understanding of why our food system looks the way that it does. That Substack is called Sam Talks Food. And it's also free to subscribe.
Awesome. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all this wonderful information and helping to set us up for success in our health journey and giving us tools to advance our health and our wellness and literally at our fingertips. So I appreciate you. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.